Welcome to the Coos County Board of Commissioners meeting for August 29th. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Let's start with 3A, request approval IGA 18-1223, Oregon Health Authority, Mike Rowley. Michael. Morning, Mike.
Morning, Commissioners. Let's see, what do we have today? This first IGA with the state is for pass-through fund for peer-delivered services for Coos County in the amount of $443,000 for 2 years.
Okay, is that a motion?
I move we approve the intergovernmental agreement number 181223-0 with Oregon Health Authority and authorize the department head Mike Rowley to sign. Dr. Sign.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion with the board? Discussion with the audience? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3B, request approval amendment number 4 to contract with Columbia Care for Crisis Resolutions Center.
This agenda item is for an extension of 2 years and a rate increase. It's incremental, so we'll have a rate increase this year and a rate increase next year. And the Crisis Resolution Center provides crisis services for our clients.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve and sign a contract amendment 4 with Columbia Care Services for CCRC.
A second?
I second the motion.
Okay, discussion with the board?
I have a question. Mike, the Coos Health and Wellness has quite a few beds available, do they not, for people that are suffering issues?
We have a variety of residential
How many
facilities.
do you have? Do you know off the top of your head?
I
David might know better.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. Top of my head, I have a rough estimate. The residential levels of care are the highest level. That's what the CRC is. So 6 beds there. There's also a facility in North Bend. That's another 5 beds. That's only for people under some kind of criminal oversight. So those are the 2 residential facilities. We are potentially looking at another one in Bandon. Hopefully that will happen. We have foster homes. We have about 10 or 15 units of foster home beds that we use. Most of our units are housing, supported housing. We have probably up to 30 or 40 beds of supported housing that we operate through contract operations. And then we have some rental assistance programs that provide probably another 40 or 50 beds of housing for owners. So that's pretty much the sort of housing stock that we have.
Very good. You know, that's a big issue. And I knew we had some. I didn't know it was that big. You know, there's a lot of involvement with homelessness now.
It's really hard for people to get better without stable places.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for doing your share.
Thank you.
It's good to know.
Do we typically utilize pretty close to 100% of this contract, or are we leaving some space on the table?
There is some meat on the bone still. We've actually had a couple of discussions. It is not easy to meet all the requirements to get somebody into that level of care. We need doctor's orders. We need a bunch of things that are hard to always get. So we've been having some meetings, and actually, I think you all approved the contract already for a nurse practitioner that's going to be working with that facility to help streamline the admission process so that we can get closer to being up to full capacity. Because it's kind of a waste of a resource if it's not full.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you for being on that.
Okay.
Well, I guess while we're on the subject, is there any update on the state support that was originally denied us, but we appealed the decision regarding the housing development in North Bend? Because it relates to another bunch of uses, I think, that you're will be involved with.
The appeal was denied. We appreciate all commissioner support, and I think a lot of community partners wrote letters to support the redetermination, but the state
So said no.
still said no. So we are, that is not going away though. We are going to fight another round.
Good.
And hopefully we'll have our ducks in a row. And we have made some appeals to the governor in particular, saying, hey, you say you want to do something around houselessness and homelessness, and yet, here's this project that was ready that got no approval. So we're hoping that we can leverage some of those resources, and maybe they'll come back and ask for your support again. But there's another funding cycle that's in January, and so we're hoping to apply again for those funds in January.
Good. Oh, good.
And I did get an approval that our funds that I thought had to be spent by the year, I did get an approval from the state to extend that so that funds can continue to be committed to a project here locally.
Yeah.
So that those dollars still have an
$2.5
opportunity.
million, is it not? $2.5 million. So
Yes.
that's significant
Yes.
money. Those are good things to hear, because the housing is a big problem, particularly for people who are having emotional issues.
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty, any questions from the audience? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All righty, 3C, request approval amendment number 2, contract with Randy and Shoots.
Yes, this is for our nutritionists that we're required to have for our WIC clients, and this is just an amendment for an increase.
Okay, motion?
Move to approve contract amendment 2 with Randy Anschutz, DBA Synergy Health.
Second.
Any discussion? Discussion by the audience? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Now, 3D was pulled and now it's back on. It got straightened out apparently. Michael, so go ahead with 3D.
We have a mental health specialist 2 who is actually doing mental health specialist 3 job position. She's been given additional responsibilities around the housing that we've just discussed, and so we need to reclass her to a mental health specialist 3 position.
Okay, motion?
I move we approve and sign resolution 2308-184P, approving reclassification of Mary Johnson to mental health associate 3, effective September 1, 2023.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none? Audience? No? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3E, request approval promotion for Lisa Emerson.
We've had this position open for 6 months. Lisa has been working out of class, and now we're ready to give her this position. And so this is an official hire for her, which would reclass her from where she is now.
Okay, motion?
Move to approve starting Lisa Emerson at step 3 plus 6%, pay grade 801 in the position of integrated care manager, effective September 1st, 2023, and sign resolution 2308-191P.
Second. Discussion by the board? Discussion by the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All righty, Parks Department, next.
No one here from Parks.
Craig's here, Craig.
Where's Greg? Oh, there you are. Heidi, is that there? Couldn't see you. Need a flag.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning.
We're on item 3F.
Thank you for being here and having me today. Craig Stallone with Coos County Parks Department. Okay, our first agenda item is the CXT building. We're in desperate need of a new vault system restroom in our campground at Laverne. The two wood structures were built in 1971, and we've been patching them and repairing them. And they're made out of wood, and we can go with the CXT building made out of concrete, and it's much easier to maintain. It has a larger bolt in it so that it will handle be a multi-sex room. It'll just be a single stall, and just to help improve the campground area there and keep people from using the brush.
I will add to that, those old wooden structures are repulsive. This is high time.
Yeah, it's kind of
and these are so much easier to maintain.
yes, and they have a good 50-year lifespan too on them, and they're easy to maintain and clean and so forth.
And you're doing replacing the two with one?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion.
I move we approve the purchase and allow spending authority to CXT for the purchase of a new CXT restroom for Laverne Park.
Second. Discussion. Discussion with the audience.
Okay.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right. Next agenda item. The Parks Department needs to replace picnic tables in our parks. I've received 3 quotes from vendors. Pilot Rock for low quote of $20,381.25. This will allow us to construct 75 new picnic tables. It's included in our budget. This is an ongoing thing. This is the 3rd year, and hopefully to get my 650 tables replaced in 5 years. But I may not be able to get them 5, but I'll get them 75 at a time.
Very nice.
Motion.
Move to accept the low quote from Pilot Rock for picnic table frames and approve the purchase amount of $20,381.25 for 75 picnic table frames.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Discussion in the audience. Hearing none, all in
Aye.
Aye.
favor? Okay. Greg, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Yes, I have a few things that we've done at the parks there. I gave you some pictures there. Bassadorf at our entrance. We've got the sidewalk poured. We're building the retaining wall there. We're 3/4 of the way done with it. We're putting 12-volt lights along there also, so that the lights will shine down so people can see in the evening time and so forth walking through there. And this is our access to help the people get off of the roadway and down to the beach from our park. Because the only way to the beach, if they're walking or riding or anything else, is walking down the hill. And so we have to get them out of our park, across the road, and down the hill to the beach. Okay. The other one is we've purchased carry-all golf carts, and this is a woodshed golf cart construction building that we're constructing to make it so we can keep our wood in there and also the golf cart all in one at our host site. Yeah, Riley. The next one is our new kayak rental station. I've asked Adam, how it's going and so forth. He hasn't responded back to me, but I have seen people renting, these kayaks up there at our rental station now at 10 Mile. I think it's going to taper off now that the season's starting to lag a little bit into the fall and winter, but I think he did pretty well there with that. Okay. The other one is our ADA parking. That's the completion of our sidewalk ADA grant that we completed. And this is all the striping and the thermo that we put down and the signage.
At Lakeside.
Pardon?
At Lakeside.
At Lakeside, yes. At
So we
Lakeside.
have new sidewalks from
Park
Lakeside
Avenue.
Street all the way down to the water,
To the ramp.
to
Yep.
the ramp.
Yep. And the gateways.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep. And then the last one is we've been having a lot of folks complaining about the low water at the ramp at 10 Mile. So we purchased these buoys here. We tried signs. People didn't like the signs. So we purchased the buoys so that people will know where the end of the ramp is. So they don't drop their wheels of their trailer off. Because we have some people trying to launch a 40-foot pontoon boat there. And it's low water, folks, and so we decided we better put something there during the low water season times so that people will be able to identify the end of the ramp and hopefully not back off of it.
It's not the big problem with launching, it's when you try and put the pontoon go back on the trailer and the trailer's off the edge and it's 2 feet off the edge.
Yeah.
And they pull the axles right off the trailer.
Yes, it has. Been axles. Yeah. Been there undercarriage underneath of them, yes. But we have put rock in there. We put some 4-inch rock at the end of the ramp, and we use our biddy to push it in, and that seems to have helped a lot about that. But the power loading is the problem we're having there.
Yeah,
Power loading and just blowing that rock right out the end of the ramp.
they use their propellers to put their boat on the trailer and washes it out.
Craig, it seems to me that sign you have at the end of the ramp goes there. As I recall, that has no power loading on it.
Yes.
But, it's too far away. I'm wondering if there's any way of getting no power loading right up where people are doing it and with like $100 fine reminder.
Yeah.
Because it's nonsense. I've seen people hook up and they just get back there and they know what's going on. But they're not considered up to think of the next guy.
No.
And I just,
We may be able to put them on. We have metal piling there, so we may be able to have the road department make us some signs, and we can put them right on that metal, probably 20 feet from the edge of the water. So you can see the metal piling in the picture there. That we could screw them to them and get them at least during. It's right where the person's standing. There's a piling right to his right. And we can put it because there's 4 ramps there. There's not just 1 or 2. There's 4.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's a piling there. Those metal, you can see the metal piling behind it. And we'd also, in the wintertime, we'd have to take them down, of course, because the water level rises
up there. But, I think people need to be reminded of that. I witnessed that. I don't know if there's a fine for it or not, but there should be.
Yeah, maybe I can talk to the marine deputies and see what they
think. That'd be a nice idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not many years ago, we had a major upgrade because of that. Maybe 3 years ago, something like that, maybe 4.
Yeah.
They washed the whole thing out. It was several feet drop off right at the end of the concrete.
Yes. Yeah.
Signage on those pylons would be effective for that, I think. And I agree with a fine for that. I mean, it's a destructive practice that's really not necessary. It's really not. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
It's all looks really good.
All right, 3H, request award of contract for planting seedlings.
Lance Morgan, Coos County Forester. Morning. Quotes were solicited for planting approximately 170,400 seedlings on county forest lands. 2 quotes were received with by Tree Service Inc. submitting a low quote of $400 per thousand. See attached bid results.
How many trees do you plant an acre?
435 usually. That could go up or down depending on how many trees we got.
So how many acres does that give us?
That's about
400
acres. That's probably.
What?
That's probably about 400 acres.
Close to 4. Yeah.
I think we have more than that. We might end up spacing the trees out. There's a lot of logging going on right now if we get some. And if we can find extra trees.
I move that we accept the low quote of $400 per thousand seedlings planted and award contract PL 123 to Rye Tree Service Incorporated.
Second.
All right, discussion? Audience discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All righty, 3I, request of contract for aerial spraying.
Quotes were solicited for Ariel's application of herbicide on approximately 585 acres of county forest land. 1 bid was received from PAC, Pacific Ag Services Northwest LLC, at $44.34 an acre.
The motion.
I move we award SP-1-23 Pacific Ag Services Northwest LLC a quarter price of $44.34 per acre for contract spraying.
Second.
Second.
Discussion board.
What herbicide is applied in this contract?
Glyphosate and oust. It's a premium.
And these are So glyphosate is, that kills everything, doesn't it?
It's supposed to, yeah.
So this is sprayed, before replanting?
Yep.
And then once it's replanted, we can't spray that.
Yeah, we can. Actually, some of these acres are for a release spray. Last year, we didn't get off our unit sprayed prior to planting. And what you do, you basically cut them on a Roundup in half, and you can spray it over the trees, and it doesn't kill them, but it'll kill the broadleaf like salmonberry.
Okay.
It's just a little short window we got there to spray. Once the trees, they form a bud to do this fur, and they don't pull into that, pull in that Roundup after that. So it doesn't hurt them.
Okay. Well, I got a comment. I mean, I personally have a great distaste for the use of glyphosate. I understand that economically there may not be another option to accomplish the objectives that you need to properly maintain the forest, but it's also true that glyphosate shows up throughout the food column, and you know, we've seen in recent decades tremendous increases in the instances of cancers. And, I mean, that's primarily a concern that I think is associated with it. I don't like it at all, but I mean, we've got to maintain and manage the forest, but I sure wish there was a different way to do it than using glyphosate.
It's the most economical way, I tell you, because if you were to wait for the brush to do it by hand, you're talking probably 2 treatments of $1,000 a meter. It's really labor intensive, and as you know, we're not a very rich county.
Yep, would stipulate. So.
Yeah, I wish we didn't have to use it. It'd be nice if we didn't have to.
I know there's not really an option, but I just had to, I had to say it because it's the truth, so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it either, but I don't know if we have an alternative. Anything else from the board?
No, sir.
Audience? All in favor?
I got something.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, come on up.
Well,
Yeah, name and general location where you live.
James Bennett over by Van Dunes.
Uh-huh.
May I suggest that you revisit this subject maybe next time and spend a couple of hours doing your homework on glyphosate and what it does to every living organism. They found it in the ice in the Arctics. It's horrible. They say the gut is the epicenter of our health. It attacks that. It's just, it's horrible stuff. So I understand that there's dollars and cents, but I would just submit that maybe we spend a couple of hours reading on the subject before you adopt it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I know Commissioner Taylor's read a lot about it.
Yeah.
And so have I, and it's not great.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. I move that we approve resolution 2308-179B, approving, where are we here? I gotta get to the right. I may have gone ahead here. Excuse me. I jumped ahead already. I move that we award SB 123 Pacific Ag Services Northwest. Oh, I moved that.
We already
As a
did
quarter
that.
license 4434.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
That's
That's all right. Now we've got to find.
We have the audience participation.
Yeah.
Mr. Bennett. Okay, any other person from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3J, request approval of resolution adding appropriations within the Forest Reserve Fund.
Okay, funds in the amount of $1,111,660 were transferred from the Forest Parks Trust account 705-0000-921.30-00 to the construction acquisition account 230-903-461.60-114 to cover the purchase of county timberland. Accounts 7000, 70002, and 707,900. The attached resolution adds the appropriations to the budget.
I move we approve resolution 23-08179 reading.
Second.
Okay.
And this is for the purchase of that 450
450,
acres from the Pac West.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please? Audience? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the request approval purchase of new pickup.
Proposed we budgeted for the purchase of budgeted for the purchase of one new pickup in fiscal year 23-24. We have requested quotes from 5 dealerships. Only one provided us with a quote. Kendall Ford quoted a price of $55,235 for a F-350 4x4 crew cab gasoline engine.
Move to approve the purchase of the 2023 Ford F-350 4x4 crew cab from Kendall Ford at the quoted price of $55,235.
Second. So this is through state purchasing or not?
Now, state purchasing did return my request. And so I went around to other people also. And even Dave Jennings at the road department said that we got a pretty good price on this. It's like a $75,000-$80,000 rig.
Dude.
And this is to replace the one that had the engine issue.
Yeah,
a couple
we
months ago.
replaced the engine initially, but as you know, I think everybody's having a lot of problem with rigs anymore. And we did repair the one because it just we haven't even got this yet, it's been 2 months. And now we'll probably keep the other one as backup, basically.
More from the board?
Actually, one other question. Was this was, well, Megan signed off on it, so it must have been calculated in on budget, so.
Yeah, I budgeted $60,000.
Okay,
You're shaking your head, yes, back there.
I'm done.
Okay, anything from the audience? No. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3L, discussion about Whiskey Run mountain bike campground possibility.
Yep, I'm doing this one. Due to the high volume out of area people using the Whiskey Run mountain bike trails, the concept of a designated campground in the trail vicinity would be helpful for overnight users.
I can add to that a little bit. We had a study done, paid for by the Southern Oregon Coast and the Youth and Movement Foundation about what amenities would be good to have at the bike trail site. And a campsite was one of them and came up. And so I think we're envisioning probably 25 plus or minus campsites, not for the great big long, 40, 50 foot long travel trailers, but for campers and tents. And it would be located down the hill from the main parking lot on a parcel that's just been clear cut. And we have a grant from Travel Southern Oregon Coast again to do, they'll do it all. They're just taking on to do the planning for the campsite, and then from there we go to get they have to get bids for construction, and it would all be done with we anticipate it all being done with grant money. It potentially could be a revenue source to help with the maintenance of the trail. Not a lot, but a little bit, every little bit would help. And people I talk to out there like the idea. I think it'll be well used.
Probably help alleviate some of the illegal camping. Still get a lot of people, you know, they can find a place to pull off the road, they camp anyway. A lot of it are mountain bikers just looking for places to spend the night.
So, motion?
So I'll move that we discuss and approve moving forward with planning and applying for grant funds.
So second. John?
I second that.
Oh, okay. So, more of a discussion. Commissioner Taylor?
Yeah, just that we actually already have discussed it. So I move that we continue discussing this
Okay.
and do move ahead. We got some comments out here.
Well, I have a comment too. Is it close enough to the current trailhead staging area parking lot that we can cut down on the amount of vandalism?
I think, no, it's not, we're not gonna have someone right there at the parking lot. The people that we used to consult about what we needed suggested we keep it a ways away from the parking lot to avoid too much congestion there. And there isn't a big spot right there to do it. This spot, one of the big advantages of this spot, there is electric service just across the street or the road, used to run lane from this campsite. So that's going to be readily available, and there's appears to be a pretty good spring on the property, so that we can have water there. Probably not for drinking, but for.
So is this gonna go into the park system?
At this point, we're contemplating leaving it in forestry, but that's something the board hasn't discussed.
Because they have the whole electronic reservation system and all that.
Plus the maintenance infrastructure.
Yeah.
We can discuss that.
And what I was thinking too is closer to the trailhead itself, have a hard coast there, so keep watch on that.
We would probably have our ghost at the campsite, but it's not that far away.
I know, but still,
They could spend time up there.
idiots when they're destroying stuff.
They haven't destroyed too much, and they take light tools that are attached to a chain. And
Cut those off.
They cut those off.
Shot an arrow through his bathroom door.
Yeah, do other things.
We're gonna start locking those tools up at night. You know, if they're not out there all the time, it's just tough luck, I guess, but it's gonna, you'd be one of the people in the bike club or us, we're just gonna put them up and take them off every day.
And having a camp host there can do that type of stuff.
You have somebody there anyway?
No, usually, no, it's in Beaver Hill, we spend a lot of time working in Beaver Hill. I mean, a lot of times we drive by there every day anyway, but there's also a couple of people from the bike club that have keys to the little spot right there, and they can take them off because, you know, it's better than getting them stolen all the time.
Yeah.
And they're pretty expensive. They're like $150 for them 6 tools. So we can design something, we can pop them off real easy and put it right back on.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Thompson, come forward, please.
Good.
Bill Thompson, Coos Bay. Good morning to you guys.
Good morning.
You know, we sort of got a special class of people that use the county force where the rest of us can't. The thing of it is, I sit here for, I don't know what, 3 different meetings, and that we didn't want nobody in the county force because we can't afford to burn it down. And here now you're gonna have a little campground in the county forest, and they're gonna be there. They probably, and I know bikers have great beer and they smoke cigarettes and everything else. So to me, after this grant is, you're gonna establish the campground stuff, who is gonna pay for the maintenance, the garbage haul, and everything else? The county's broke in one job.
There'll be revenue generated by the park, and we expect the park to be more than self-supporting.
Right.
I can't guarantee that, but that seems to be the way things that have worked out at our parks, and we've done a very good job, in my view. Craig continues to do a good job, and even Lance has done a good job.
Lance has done a good job.
I know. Yeah. But so I'm not looking, Phil, at this being a burden to the county in any way whatsoever. And, you know, we have other parks that are in forested areas. So the very fact that we have a park, to me, people are going to camp anyway. So let's give them a good place to camp with someone there to watch in the proper facilities, so that I'm building a campfire out in the woods someplace. I think this is a positive.
I'd like to interject a comment as well. Phil, you mentioned that forest is accessible to some but not to others. The fact of the matter is that all the forest roads are completely open to bicycles. It's not closed off to bicycles. It's closed off to motorized vehicular traffic. That's what it is. So this is not specialized access or anything like that. It's bicycles.
Think that's your question. It is. It's discrimination in the biggest form, as far as I can see. You got 1/2 of the population that are riding a bicycle. The people that can't ride a bicycle, the handicapped and everybody else, does not have access to the county forest. Personally, I'm 83 years old now. I shouldn't have to walk 5 miles to pick mushrooms
Well,
or hunt.
and that is exactly why we are working on a plan to try to get some of those roads open back up. So,
Well, the thing of it is, I hope here next year we don't turn it over to the county parks to maintain stuff. I just came down Central Saturday. I see Frona Park's got a big lot on it. It's not even open.
But Mark, where are you
Frona.
Frona,
Yeah.
by Gordon. It's been that
We
way.
got 35 parks. Why, in the name of heaven, we ever ended up with 35 parks? I don't know. We have 5 parks that pay their own way and pay for the entire parks department. So this is a positive to the county, not a negative. And yes, you're right. We've had to close some of those local parks because we just can't afford to keep them open, Phil.
John, I agree that we got some parks that's making a lot of money and they're paying for other ones. But the thing of it is, we're going to add another park that I guarantee you down the road is going to be added to the park office over here in our county. That they'll be required to take care of it. Anyway, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Come on up.
My name's Tim Pierce. I live out by 17 Devils and Whiskey Run. I've been there 38 years. The changes have been drastic, none of them positive. You guys have ruined everything out there. I used to be able to ride my motorcycle on the beach with no license. I used to be able to build campfires on the beach. Can't do that anymore. I used to be able to go mushrooming without a permit. Can't do that anymore. I used to be able to fish in the ocean without a license, except for salmon. I used to be able to crab without a license, clam without a license. You guys are dumping more and more things on us and ruining everything. You said you've talked to people out there, Mr. Sweet. You've never, ever talked to me. I am adamantly against this bike thing. You people just talked about shutting parks down because you can't afford to maintain them, and here you are building another one. And by the way, it's been over 12 years since I've been in here. My God, you guys found a great way of squandering the taxpayers' money with this stuff. We used to have desks along here. Worked just fine. What's all this business here?
I can tell you what it is, sir. I don't want to engage in conversation every time someone makes a comment, but when we're accused of malfeasance, then I feel obligated to do so. We were directed by the state of Oregon, during the COVID situation, to make sure that we provided a way for the public, whether they could be here in person or not, to attend our meetings. And so we've done this for that.
So
There
this,
are-
so
let me
this,
finish,
this right
sir.
here, this right here is what it's all about. That there, this is so people
We-
could have.
We have a multitude of equipment back here for all these screens and for all the speakers that we were obligated to get, and they take all kinds of wires in order to do this. Sir, let me finish. In order to do this, we had to elevate this a little space below here so we can have all those wires so people don't trip over them. And that's all it is. Our own in-house carpenters did this for us. They did a remarkable job.
Well, it looks great.
And it didn't cost very much money. I can't give you the number.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back to the real issue here, these god awful bike things here. We're counting on these. I live out there, and I pray to God these people don't burn the forest down and take my house with it. and I'm sure a lot of other people, if you actually physically asked everybody out there or sent some sort of a questionnaire to everybody out within a couple miles, you want to build that darn park campground even closer to my front door.
Okay, so.
You know, I mean, it's really enough out there, really. You can't, the traffic out there is malacious because of abandoned dunes. It's just like the whole area has just been turned upside down over the years, and it seems like you guys really don't care about the people who live out there. You just look to get more of this kind of stuff in the form of taxation.
So
You smile, Bob, 'cause you
well,
know
I
what it's
am,
about.
because the 5 of the 6 things you mentioned when
Yeah.
you came up, no, the function of the county, the state did that,
That's right.
not the county. Not us guys.
So you guys, don't you guys have a say in it?
No, no, not at all. No. Fishing out in the ocean, riding down the beach, all that kind of stuff.
Too many humanoids, you know.
Yeah, but riding down the beach and fishing in the ocean, all that stuff is a system of the state of Oregon, not the county.
Oh, I realize that the state
Okay.
runs all that business, but it's because of the way the county's being managed and everything. I just
That has nothing to do with it.
understand, you know, it's the forest products here are supposed to be probably the cornerstone for the county's economy. Other than property taxes, there is no other money really coming in. A huge part of the county is owned by the state and the federal government, which I think sucks because they don't pay taxes the way we the people do.
Mhm.
So that's all that land's taken off the tax bill. And this is kind of craziness. I think it's time to pump the brakes and say, you know, maybe enough is enough.
So,
Park business and all this other
You may
stuff.
not know, but the total property tax that the county gets to run the general fund departments is about 6 million. Just the jail alone is over 7.
I know, it's terrible.
By the-
I realize the county's taxes.
And you're talking about abandoned dunes, they contribute voluntarily about $1.5 million to the general fund to keep the jail open. All by themselves. Nobody made them do it, nothing. They did it voluntarily.
And they do it
$1.5
every year.
million.
They may very well do that, but once again, you guys are destroying the livability of that area. I mean, you should have, it used to be wild and crazy and free out there back in the day. Now it's not.
I understand that part. I
You know?
totally
And I
agree
think
with
that
it.
you guys should
It's
brave that,
changed.
brave the rights of the people that live there. You're not talking about plopping a campground very close to my front door. I think it's probably the same area that you guys were looking to put a gun range in years ago. Remember that one over there on
That's-
Whiskey Run? And you guys
that's-
land swapped it
well,
up
no,
there, you know?
That's to the north about a mile, what you're talking about.
You wanted to move down the hill for the campground, right?
No, it's not on Whiskey Run. What you're talking about, the old proposed gun range is not even close to that.
Well, the proposed gun range was I think the Kimberly Clark, I won't get into that discussion, but
Yeah.
the campground itself, you're talking about putting down closer to 7 Devil Road, am I correct?
Just slightly down on Whiskey Run Lane towards the west, yes, if I understand it right.
That's right. Well, you got one person, I can surely find more that are not really too keen on it.
Thank you much.
Especially in the area. I wish you guys would at least send questionnaires to the people that live in that area that deal with all that before you go off doing stuff like this. You know, this affects a lot of people's lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir, come on up.
We have 3 minutes per person.
James Bennett, I think, right?
I wasn't going to say anything today. I live right there too on the corner. And, you know, when you buy a property, you check out the features of the neighborhood and everything. And I know it's desirable there. I expected it to blow up in terms of residences. But, you know, the road is already very curvy and dangerous. I got ran off the road there and wrecked a vehicle. I've never hardly ever been in a traffic accident in my life. It's already, and you're not talking about regular traffic. You're talking about larger vehicles, towing, and the topography. I know you could do a lot of excavation and site work, but the topography, if you look at it, it doesn't look like it lends itself. I think that up on Beaver Hill, up at the intersection there, anywhere around there would be a very appropriate site. I think that you're Bandon and the county is to be commended for doing the parking in Bandon. I appreciate accommodating the tourism, and I like to see the town busy. But for a few different reasons, I don't think that's the same.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Anybody else? All righty. So, we have a motion there, forgotten.
Yes,
we have a motion.
All in favor?
Working towards.
Aye. All righty. 3M, request approval of contract
Thanks,
with Gage Construction for guardrail repair, road department.
Good morning, Slater, Public Works. So we had requested quotes from 3 companies for guardrail repairs on 2 bridges. One's on Dement Creek Road and one is on right at the intersection of Ketch and Slough Road and Old Wagon Road. We got back 2 quotes. The third one was another quote. So we'd like to award the work to Gage Construction with not to exceed $31,000.
Move to approve and sign contract with Gugit Construction for guardrail repairs on Catching Slough and Dement Creek bridges, not to exceed $31,000.
Second. Discussion. Discussion in the audience. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3M, which has been a bit modified, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the only modification is the pay scale that I'm proposing. So originally let me back up. So we've been trying to hire a road maintenance manager on the road department now for over a year, unsuccessfully. We've tried multiple things like changing the pay scale and other things, still been unsuccessful in getting a qualified applicant. So as I've discussed with the board in past meetings, if that didn't pan out, I'd like to hire a road foreman, which is a lower level position that doesn't require quite the same technical capabilities as a road maintenance manager. So that's what I'm here for today, is to request that the board approve a different pay scale for a road foreman position. It used to be scale 812. The agenda item I sent in originally said to go to 831, but after some further calculations, that 831 pay scale is barely higher than some of our higher paid operators in the road department right now. So it doesn't really make sense. If a maintenance worker 5 person right now that's towards the top of the scale works 1 day of overtime in a month, they would actually make more than this road foreman who would be their boss.
I move that we approve revising the pay grade for the road foreman position from 812 to 824 and advertise, post, and fill the position.
Second. Discussion on the board. Discussion with the audience. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
I just want to say thank you to Paul. Since he's become director of public works, we've been pretty much shorthanded, and he's been filling 2, sometimes 3 positions at a time. I know he's at work awfully early in the morning. I don't check on it, but I hear it before 5 o'clock. So, thanks. So, thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, 3O, request approval number 4, modification to Douglas County Detention for juvenile here. I will handle. This is a standard agreement that we've had for many, many years, which will cover July 1 of 23 through June 30 of 24. Is that a motion?
Move to sign the 4th modification to Douglas Detention Shelter IGA.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Discussion in the audience. All in favor?
Aye.
Request approval to start Laura McCree at step 3. Sheriff.
Morning, Sheriff.
Morning, Mr. Sheriff.
Thanks. Thank you. So we have a lateral that has joined us, or will be joining us hopefully on the 6th of our sign-in date. It's coming from the Forestry Service, certified patrol officer. Pretty excited to get a patrol officer. Of course, we don't have to save a lot of time and money on the training. Don't have to send her to the academy and everything. So step 3 is really close to what she's making right now. She's not stepped out over there in her federal job. Request approval, bring it on.
Move to approve hire at step 3 for lateral transfer of law enforcement into patrol.
Second. Discussion. Those from the audience?
Good one. Congratulations. Hard to find these people.
All in
Very,
favor?
very.
Aye.
And on that note, I'm sorry, totally as a side note, but I'm excited about it. Tomorrow we're interviewing 11 people for entry level positions.
Cool.
I haven't seen that much in the last 10 years, so
Wow.
just thought I'd mention it. Sorry.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So is your perception that, that the pay boost was the dynamic there?
I think so. Nobody's really cited it, but the timing is, I don't believe it's coincidental.
Yeah, right. Very good. Great news.
Yeah, very exciting.
Do you have anything else you want to add about the upcoming court case? And there was already a court case on Measure 114.
Oh, yeah. How in depth?
High capacity magazines, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so September 18th, the court case with the Harney County judge that ruled it unconstitutional goes before the Supreme Court. However, unfortunately, recently it was ruled constitutional by the federal judge, which is going to cause some problems. One of the biggest situations that we're going to run into, we got to figure out, is there's 8 stipulations in 114 that requirements people have to meet in order to get the permit for purchase that they're trying to mandate. And one of those is that the FBI does a background check. The FBI has adamantly refused to do a background check. So really unsure how this unconstitutional measure could even possibly happen, since the federal government isn't playing with the state government. They can't force them. So, there's a whole lot of discussion and stuff in works.
So effectively, it stops everything.
It may.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, it's as the sheriff's office, it's rock and a hard place, because it's really what it's doing is it's targeting the people that want to sell or trade or deal in the high capacity magazines and weapons. I could refuse to participate in 114 whatsoever, but really all that's going to do is it would hurt the people that are selling.
So, if, an example, if I had a high capacity magazine for 20 years, apparently, if law enforcement came to my home for some reason and found that magazine, I could be cited and I'd have to go to court to prove that I had it 20 years ago.
Correct. And there is an affirmative defense for being able to prove pre-existing ownership against the law. However, it can still go to court, and the jury would have to decide, even with that affirmative defense of pre-existing ownership, that they're excused of the crime.
So I noticed that it's permissible to use it at a training facility or range. So how do you even go to the range without having a problem?
Good question.
I know. I mean, it hadn't been thought out very much.
I don't agree whatsoever that it's constitutional, and it is. I do agree that it's not thought out.
Yeah.
I have a good idea about that.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you're moving your items around in Coos County, and you should be safe. I hope.
Depends on where you move them, I guess. Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
Of course, thank you.
We have item 3Q, request approval of grant support letter for SIN.
Yes, so we've recently asked a grant writer for assistance in seeking out and finding grants, and she's doing a fantastic job. This is really to help support SIN, which, as we know, isn't funded by general funds. Right now on the docket, it looks like she has five grants for a total of $35,550 that she would use this letter to send to different agencies to try to bring in some support for SIN. And that's everything from actually supporting the grant writer themselves to equipment, to body wires, to computers, to really just kind of, as you know, one of my priorities is trying to figure out some drug enforcement. One of all of our priorities, you guys is too. So this should help a lot with that. And thankfully, it won't come out of general fund.
Okay.
So I'm just asking for you guys to sign that.
I move that we sign a letter of support for the SIN.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah,
Sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
Just for those in the audience, and that SIN at one time was a 2 county-wide organization supported by both counties and most of the cities in those counties. And over time, everyone practically, there's some cities are still helping, the tribe might be helping. Some, but essentially everyone but the county has withdrawn their support. Now, I don't think the drug problem has gone away. If anything, it's got worse. I'm really proud of what this county does and what we do it on. And the fact that we're still supporting Sin, despite the fact that I don't know of any other county here, well, maybe one other county on the coast, or any city has suffered the personnel cutbacks and the financial hardship that the county is carrying. I think the cities should be ashamed of themselves. And for those of you who live in these cities or near them, if you want something done against drugs, we need help. And those cities need to be badgered into helping. We can't carry the load ourselves. Yeah, despite the fact that we are, but it could be done better. And I can't say enough about our Sin personnel and our sheriff and the sheriff's department for the work they're doing in this regard. It's so frustrating to me. They put that behind them and carry the load themselves. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then you have the burden of Measure 110 on top of it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Which we did a resolution last board meeting against that.
Yes, sir.
So,
Hang on a minute. Anybody from the audience? Yes, sir. Come on up.
While Richard makes his way up, I'll add that Measure 110 passage is probably part of the reason that the other municipalities have dropped down to that support, because there's less incentive. Good morning,
no,
Richard.
they didn't wait that long. They did.
Yeah,
right. Don't let them off the hook.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Richard Kaczynski, longtime denizen. It's obvious that we need to raise more money for law enforcement in the whole county. And I think that we need to figure out, and I don't know how to do this, but have some sort of bond measure put together to support the sheriff and the SIG and, maybe even, the cities, I think, are covering themselves. But this is something that, I've been trying to speak to for a while. That Coos County, we need to take care of ourselves and not depend on outside money. And the way we're going to do that, like it or not, is to write a bond measure, which essentially is like a tax. But until we can come up with another method for doing it, I think it's you guys that can put together the bond measure. But we need to do that. I think we need to do it on a lot of levels, but definitely on the law enforcement and definitely on dealing with, our serious drug issue. So, if there's some way I could have some input into the bond measure, let me know. I don't know the process. Anyway, that's what we got to do. We got to come up with money to deal with this, like it or not. It's the adult thing to do.
Okay.
Thank you. You just did something, Richard. Thank you for that.
Anybody else? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Sheriff.
3R, request approval of revised job description for federal office manager, approved of advertising, filling position, HR. Caroline.
Good morning, Caroline Logan, HR Department. In consultation with the Fair Board Chairperson, National Liaison, and the Coos County Finance Department, and after reviewing the Fair Office budget, revisions have been made to the position description duties of the Fair Office person, and the changes made accurately reflect the duties the position is expected to perform for the county. And in addition to that, we received recommendation to change the title to Fair Office Manager and amend it to the overtime exempt status to salary position and place under pay grade 749. And then request, to approve posting and filling the position.
Okay,
Move to approve the job description of fair office manager as presented under pay grade 749 and approve posting and filling the position.
I second the motion.
discussion report. Discussion in the audience. Finance Director Sims. Oh, you're next. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just kick in with a quick comment that, you know, there were some difficulties with the fair office this year, and many thanks to Caroline and to Megan for jumping in there and filling the needed roles there and helping the fair to actually happen. I think it went off very successfully, so thank you both. And anybody else that I missed who jumped in like that too.
Megan's staff.
Yeah, Megan's staff all had to cover bases too, so thank you both.
I would second that. Thank you.
And I heard a lot of comments about how smooth it went this year.
Yeah.
So you're permanently now attached.
We're gonna change, when are we gonna change the
Any other-
finance office's job description and HR's job description? Fair.
For
Yeah.
sure, the finance department.
Okay, any other discussion with the audience about the fair job description and position? And then all in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3S, request approval of resolution adding appropriations to the general administration fund.
For the administrative grant fund,
That would be it,
that one? Okay.
yes.
So the county has a community development block grant for an emergency regional child care assistance program. The grant was not fully expended in the last year and needs to be added to this budget. This grant most likely will not fully be spent, and it is decided not to extend it by all of the people that are actually doing the work. But we will most likely have some expenses in this fiscal year that I will need the appropriations for.
Okay.
I move that we approve and sign resolution 2308180B.
Second.
Discussion. Discussion of the audience, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3T, request approval of resolution transfer funds within the fair fund.
On July 10th, the board approved the purchase of golf carts for the fair. This resolution is transferring appropriations to the line item the golf carts were purchased out of.
Move to approve and sign resolution 2308181B.
I second that.
Discussion.
Yes, I'd like to point out for the benefit of those in the audience that these golf carts are just used by county personnel to run around the fair. They're they carry more than typical golf carts do, and they were used to shuttle fair attendees from the parking areas nearby. Not always nearby. The fair was so successful, we had some parking lots are quite a ways away to and from the fairgrounds. So apparently it worked very well. I think people appreciated that.
And I'll add to your comments, Commissioner Sweet, that those golf carts were placed in order to replace the train that we used to have, because the cost of that train had become so high that the cost benefit analysis made it clear that we were better off acquiring those vehicles on our own and doing it ourselves. So.
And I know a lot of people, when I was at the fair, older folks really appreciated the lift up the hill.
Yeah.
So you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sing.
Yeah.
Very good.
I couldn't let it go.
But they didn't have a wheelchair for me. Never mind. Any other comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3U, request approval to purchase Eagle View aerial imaging and authorized chair to sign assessment. Mr. Jansen.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Steve Jansen, County Assessor.
Moving around quite fluidly there.
With your new knee?
I'm not running anywhere.
No, that's good.
Don't see any of us running anywhere, Steve. Thank you.
The colored map, I'll get to in a moment. Permission has been given to enter into an agreement with Pictometry, now known as Eagle View, for a 2-year contract for high resolution aerial imaging. The amount of $69,573 is due at signing, and the equal amount, $69,573, is due at the first anniversary of delivery, for a total contract amount, 2-year period, $139,146. We're asking that the commissioners approve the purchase, authorize the chair to sign the purchase order.
Move to approve the purchase and authorize the chair to sign.
No second?
I second for discussion purposes.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I'm not sure we left our budget meetings with a clear understanding. Steve, I'm just bothers me to be doing this. I had looked back at the minutes of the budget meeting to refresh my memory. And maybe the minutes don't clearly reflect the budget meeting, but I'd like to have a discussion to make sure that we're on the right track here. I look at the minutes and I find where I said that I would be okay with a 2-year contract for Eagle View and new employees. No new employees. Because this program, the Eagle View program, is supposed to do the work for part of the employee leave. Then Commissioner Taylor stated that we still need to add a new employee because of the retirements. And we talked about which position that employee should be hired for. And I think, according to the minutes here, I must have said that I would agree with hiring the position, and that it would be up to the assessor to choose which position he felt was most needed to be filled. Then Megan said that this leaves the budget $2,475,772 short.
This contract for the Eagle View?
Now let me finish, Steve, please. I'm sorry. I can see where there could be some confusion. If there was, I apologize for that. But it was my opinion that when we agreed to hire the new employee, that we also agreed to not do the 2-year contract for Eagle View. That's kind of how I remember it. Megan, when you did this calculation that said it left the budget at $2,475,772 short, did that or did it not include both the new position or the position and the Eagle View contract?
It did not include the Eagle View contract. It did, I believe it included one of the positions. I had added one back in based on what was discussed previous. And then I think if you read on in the minutes, it does say that we could pull Eagle View out and decide at a later time if we wanted to use and pay for it directly out of ARP funds. But there was nothing that was ever approved to actually pay for it with ARP funds. So it was kind of left for later discussion because there were some more questions and some more unknowns during that meeting.
I don't mind having that discussion, but I just wanted to make sure that if we prove something, we do it with full knowledge of what we've done before. I do have concerns about our remaining American Rescue Plan funds. We used quite a few of those funds to balance this year's budget. The only option was to cut position, and it just didn't seem, and largely they would have come out of the public safety sector. We're running so skinny everywhere else, and not that we're not skinny in the public safety sector, just that they got more bodies to work with. But there are other demands that have been put on our ARP fund. And so we're going to have to, at some point in time, choose amongst which demands, including this, we provide for. And I'd like to see us have a more in-depth discussion of that before we go ahead with this, unless there's some deadline that we have to meet on this week.
So I'd like to chime in here with two things. First is, during the budget hearings, my recollection is that the assessor's ask was for the Eagle View, and I believe it was 3 employees that he wanted in addition to that. And in those discussions, I think what we came around to was the idea that there was no way we could afford to justify all of that, despite recognizing the profound need, but that the Eagle View in combination with perhaps one of those positions would be a great enhancement over the current situation. And I see Steve's nodding his head that was the discussion. The second point I wanted to make that I just completely lost.
And it wasn't a brand new position. It was refilling a position of somebody who was retiring.
Right.
So we didn't increase the staff at all.
That's right.
In fact, one of the prior hires that we had quit the morning of our budget hearing 3 years ago. And the budget committee said, oh, you can't replace him. So we went 3 years without that person on the staff. We worked harder, and it leads us today where we are. We used to have 5 field appraisers. We have 4 now. 2 of the 4 are brand new. They haven't even met their first probationary review yet. Mm-hmm. And it takes a while. It takes a good year to become productive. And we're simply asking with this Eagle View for another tool. It's a very, very effective tool. It's used by governmental agencies all over the country. Within the state of Oregon, there are 20 counties using Eagle View. One of them, Jackson County, has upped the quality of the photographs they're taking, and they're doing it twice a year. We're asking for once every second year. And this isn't just for our department. This was being used by the assessor, by the surveyor's office, the planning and community development. These are high resolution, 3-dimensional images that they can use in their normal business. We use it every day, every single day. Multiple people in the office use it. It's just low resolution. It's what the state gives us when we're waiting 4 years now for the latest update from the state. And it's hard to do business when your best data is 4 years old. Codes enforcement, sheriff's office, search and rescue. This is high resolution stuff. They can use that. We will provide training for up to 50 users. And when we're able to use it, we'll be able to sell the product to the city of Coos Bay, North Bend, Coquille, any of the other governmental agencies. We can enter into a subscription service or some way, so we'll be reimbursed partly by them. SINT, road department, parks, and something as simple as the elections. When you can look at a high resolution image and you can look at it, is the corner of that property on this tax code area or precinct, or is it in the other precinct? That's something that we do all the time. And quite often,
we're interpolating, we're looking at an image that's fuzzy and lines that aren't accurate, and we're trying to decide for the elections office, where does this resident live and vote? Additionally, I'm ask you to consider each year we budget very closely and we spend as frugally as we can. But the fact is, over the last 9 years, we've returned significant money to the general fund out of what was budgeted. Last year, for example, we returned $90,800 that we did not spend. Now, most of that came from personnel expense. We have a problem with everybody being able to work all the time, every week. And when they don't work and they pass all their vacation time and sick time and everything, they don't get paid. Now, last year, $90,800. 21-22, that was $115,000. Those two right there would pay for our 2 years, 3 years, almost 4 years of Eagle View. The things we can control are materials and services. We're generally within 2%, 3% of what we had budgeted, and we've never overspent. We've returned that. So the other departments, I don't know who else spends it, or maybe it just doesn't get spent and doesn't become a deficit. But certainly we're returning that. This is a tool like a car. We have never, since I've been assessor, have never bought a new vehicle. We bought used vehicles. We accepted hand-me-downs from the sheriff's department. And every appraiser in the field doesn't have a car. In years past, that's the way it was. 20 years ago, when I wasn't the assessor, there were about 30 people in the department. We've trimmed that back, and we've been forced to trim it back. We have 14 now, including me and the chief deputy. 14 people doing what 30 used to do, or 32 used to do. I think we've been very frugal and used the right tools for the right job, and we're asking that you acknowledge that. That's all we're asking for here. In 2 years, if we haven't used this wisely, and we're going to ask for a renewal of that contract, if you think we have not done a good job, tell us no, we can't do it. I'm going to be retired, but
I wanted to add one other comment pursuant to Commissioner Sweet's comments, or question really about an impending deadline that affects this decision today. And that impending deadline is actually right upon us, and it's called the Leaf On flight that Eagle View provides. And it's a substantial savings over the Leaf Off flight. I think the reason for that is because the relative value of the photograph set is higher with the Leaf Off. Plus, the flying conditions are more difficult because you're in different weather patterns. But anyway, we're trying to take advantage of that Leaf On flight window, which is just about to close on us.
I think it's next week. We asked back in May 15th, we submitted this proposed contract to county council, and for any number of reasons, it just didn't happen. We needed a new county council. It's been like, I've got my hair on fire trying to make this thing go faster, and he didn't. And when Nathaniel left, unfortunately, this was an undone project that we're stand to lose the ability to use this tool this year. We'll be able to wait, and we won't have the overflight during the winter time. We'll wait until next spring and have it flown, and we'll pay for it at that time if we have to. But it's about a $39,000 discount to use the Leaf On flights. the contract price that Eagle View figures out is their customers, mainly in the middle and the east part of the country, have broadleaf trees, deciduous trees, and they don't want those leaves getting in the way of the airplane flying over 1,500 feet taking pictures of structures. Here we have evergreen trees, and they don't change that much from winter to summer to obstruct the view. So it's not that big of a deficit for the product that we get. Now the colored image I showed you, originally we were looking at having overflight for the entire county. Price became an issue, so we cut it back to about 2/3 of the county. That's the western half of the county. And the blue areas, the high resolution, those are between 2 and 3 inch pixels. The rest of the county is 6 to 9 inch pixels in the green. And the eastern part of the county, we're not going to pay for any overflight there. We'll use whatever the state can provide us whenever they get around to providing. Can I answer any other questions for you?
So for me, next year, unfortunately, for the general fund departments, that's the sheriff and the jail, and dispatch, and DA, and you, and treasurer, tax, commissioners, county council, HR, juvenile, county clerk, surveyor, etc. We're looking at a $4 million deficit that we can't cover. We've been trying everything we can to try and find that $4 million for next year for the general fund departments. Now, road department, health and wellness, forestry, and all that are not in the general fund. But in the general fund departments, we are $4 million short. And I've said this before, in the mid-'80s, and it's because the federal government and others were not cutting the ONC forest anymore, but in the mid-'80s, in today's dollars, we got $25 million. Today, we got, last year, we got 1.3. And the $6 million we get in property tax and 1.3 barely keeps the jail open, let alone all the other departments we have of the general fund. I don't know where this $4 million is coming from. I just don't. I've been racking my brain trying to think of all kinds of things. We're looking at selling off county properties that we really, let's put that, is not absolutely essential. Those sort of things. But to try and that'll be a 1-year stopgap, but not a permanent fix for the system. So all general fund departments, if nothing changes, it's going to be really ugly budget next year. That's where I'm coming from. So I would,
if you want to get more assessed value property tax, you don't cut our staff, you don't cut our tools.
I understand that, but
when you were assessor, your people would go out in the field, every company, fourth of what they found, fourth of the new value. It wasn't because the property owner came to you and said, "Oh, hey, I'm building a new house or a new barn." They built it and never told you.
Oh, I know. We found it. We found it. But let's say with Eagle View, you find $1 million worth of non-permitted structures. Now I know you get all the permits from the county and the cities and all of the zoning changes and all that stuff from the county and lot line changes and all that sort of stuff. You get all that. Let's say you find $1 million worth.
We found $1 million in the last 2 months.
Yeah. Okay. So you hang on, Steve. So you find $1 million. That's, and the rate per thousand divided that gives you $1,000 times a tax rate of $1 gives us what? $1,080 to the county general fund. This Eagle View thing then would take 129 plus years to pay for it. I got that part, and everybody was doing the same thing.
all departments have lost people. The county clerk has 4 total people now, 2 in records and 2 in elections. They used to have many more. County surveyor had 5 or 6 people, and now they're working with 3. We all realize that, and we're
This
stuck.
isn't talking about losing people. This is how much under our budgeted
I
amounts
know.
that we
And those departments save too at the same time by cutting back on the expenses of people, which is most of the cost of the county. So I can't justify buying this because we're not gonna have the money in the future, period. And that means people's positions, which we have some really good people working for the county. It's amazing how good they are.
Bob, I'm asking for a tool that's gonna help our
I heard
office
that.
bring in more tax dollars to the county.
Thank you.
We're willing to talk about that for a small part, but you're not willing to talk about it on.
It's not in the general fund. The general fund is what I'm talking about. It's 4 million short for next year. Okay, anything else from the board? Anything from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm afraid
Aye.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, Steve, but I don't have any choice. I wish we had that. I wish we were in the mid-80s again when they were cutting timber.
We're not in the mid-80s.
I know that, and that's the problem.
Facing the reality of this year.
All right. Megan. 3V, request approval of obligating Title III funds. And we have to obligate these Title III funds for basically Firewise, search and rescue, emergency services, etc. Community wildfire protection plans. Want to come up, Megan? And we received 135,337.05 for 22 and 137,853.08 in 23. After the reauthorization of the SRS Secure Rural Schools Act of 2018, which is going to run out September 1st this year on the SRS. So we need, in order to obligate those funds into those various departments that I talked to and others that I may have missed. Did I cover it?
Cover the sheriff's department.
Yeah, the SO, yes. Yep. So I need a motion for obligating Title III funds received under the SRS Act.
Move to approve order 23080551L.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion with the audience. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Move approval of the consent calendar.
Do you have a second on that? Consent calendar?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Discussion with anybody? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Late agenda items, we don't show any. Do we have any late agenda items?
I have a late agenda item.
Okay.
I move that we entertain the late agenda.
What is it?
Well, hang on a minute. We got to approve it.
I want to know what it is that we're approving here. Talk about it. That's all. I just want to know.
We have to do that. You can approve or disapprove
Okay.
afterwards.
We always do it the other way around.
Okay, so you
Yep,
approve
of course.
hearing a late? Yes, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, okay, now present your late.
Just one for you, Counselor.
There you go.
This is
And just one to
This is a
Carolyn.
resolution regarding unconstitutional state and federal mandates. We've been hearing about the possibility of impending new mandates around some supposed new variant of COVID. And given the experience that we as a county had, that every county in the nation almost had in the last round of this type of tyranny, I felt that it was very important for us as county commissioners to stand up and say, listen, if these illegal, unconstitutional mandates come down from the state and the feds again, that we as commissioners in Coos County say, no, not here. that we demand the freedom and liberty of our people here in Coos County. So I'm going to just read this background. Coos County businesses, individuals suffered great harm due to illegal, unconstitutional mandates from state and federal government agencies in 2020, 2021, and 2022, and the damage is not even yet fully assessed. The people of Coos County must have their individual rights and freedoms preserved. If state and federal elected servants will not stand against tyranny, then county-level elected servants, the commissioners, must do so. And the requested action is to pass and sign the resolution in the matter of proclaiming Coos County's rejection of unscientific mask mandates, closures, or restrictions related to respiratory or other diseases and reconfirming personal freedoms. Mr. Chair, would you like me to read the resolution?
Please.
In the matter of proclaiming Coos County's rejection of unscientific mask mandates, closures, or restrictions related to respiratory or other diseases and reconfirming personal freedoms. Whereas Coos County, the state of Oregon, and other states suffered immeasurable economic and societal harms as a result of unconstitutional mandates, restrictions, and forced closures related to the impacts of engineered viruses in 2020, 2021, and 2022, and whereas the morbidity rate for COVID-19 was and is less than 1% in adults and a fraction of that in children, and total death counts in the U.S. remained steady before, during, and after all phases of the so-called pandemic, with COVID deaths skyrocketing even while influenza deaths completely disappeared from statistical data, and whereas scientific evidence and peer-reviewed studies show that masks are not effective against respiratory viruses, that they impede social and speech development critical to the life success of children, and that they increase CO2 intake to dangerous levels. And whereas so-called COVID-19 vaccines lack any peer-reviewed analysis of their objective safety, their manufacturers are exempt from any litigation resulting from harm caused by these untested and unproven products. Yet, due to governmental overreach, many Americans were forced to choose between their livelihoods or being injected with a risky mRNA that changes the function of their immune systems, narrowing the focus of antibodies to exact strains rather than a broader and adaptive efficacy. And whereas widespread occurrences of myocarditis, immunological deficiency, neurological symptoms like Bell's palsy, tremors, and partial paralysis, along with many other effects, have followed the high-pressure rollout of these vaccines, and yet COVID infections in vaccine recipients have far outpaced those among those choosing natural immunity or treatments castigated by the mainstream. And whereas unconstitutional lockdowns, which forbade the free exercise of commerce, were extremely damaging to smaller and locally owned businesses while advancing opportunities for mega corporations. And whereas the state and federal governments illegally quashed the right of the people to attend faith-based gatherings, thus breaking down societal fabric. And whereas state and federal agencies destroyed their own credibility by using unconstitutional means to suppress accurate information about the efficacy of COVID treatments such as ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamin D3, and quercetin, calling their promotion, quote, disinformation, while simultaneously promoting ineffective and dangerous or even deadly treatment regimens such as remdesivir and mechanical ventilators, which caused the deaths of many thousands of people. And whereas state and federal mandates irreparably harmed millions of our precious senior citizens by the unnecessary use of lockdowns, restrictions, and mask rules that isolated them from normal social interactions, basic caregiver access, and from their loved ones, causing a dramatic worsening of loneliness, stress, anxiety, and depression, increasing the risk for dementia and of death from all causes. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Coos County Board of Commissioners that 1, People are free to take steps they deem appropriate to protect their health, safety, and welfare, and no government has the constitutional authority to deprive them of those freedoms. 2, no Coos County assets will be used to enforce future unconstitutional mandates from state or federal governments that are related to lockdowns, closures, or vaccinations having to do with any COVID or other disease. And 3, no government has the authority to restrict free speech or the right of assembly or the right to redress the government for grievances or the right to commerce or the right to travel, except in those rare and localized instances of public emergency as allowed for in the U.S. and Oregon constitutions.
Okay. Comments by the board?
Bernie,
Yeah,
what'd you say?
comments by the board.
Is that a motion?
No, just comments first. Actually, yeah, let's do the motion first. The motion?
I move to pass and sign the resolution in the matter of proclaiming Coos County's rejection of unscientific mask mandates, closures, or restrictions related to respiratory or other diseases and reconfirming the personal freedoms.
Do I have a second?
I will second it for discussion purposes only. I
All
have
right.
concern.
Thank you. Go ahead.
There's a lot of things that some of us may agree with or disagree with. We may even think they're unconstitutional, but certainly this group here before you are not constitutional attorneys. We're not even a court. So how are we going to determine whether something's constitutional or not? Who's going to make that determination? There's lots of times I witness when people say that's unconstitutional, but it turns out to be constitutional. And so I have real concerns. I don't want to put Aubrey on the spot, but if you wish to comment, I'd appreciate it. If you don't, I understand.
I would imagine council would have to do quite a bit of research for.
It's a complex issue. I think that the sentiments that are expressed in the resolution are widely held, but from a legal perspective, the issue is complicated. And so I don't want to venture at this point without specific.
I appreciate that.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Really?
I would oppose this because of my concern.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certainly not saying I don't believe in the Constitution of the state of the United States or the state, but I don't think that. I think this is on top of a lot of controversy.
Well, for me, sitting here and reading through this, there's a lot of things that I agree with. I mean, I didn't go on the mask mandates last time. We got, what do we call it? Got noted by OSHA that I wasn't using the mask mandates, even though I was the board chair, which is an exemption to the mask mandate. They wanted to fine me. And I'm thinking, don't take a hike. And I never ever considered having those shots in the boosters because, as you find out later, and I always suspicion, it changes your DNA profile, which you don't want to do. We spent millions of years as humans adapting, and our bodies found ways to combat various diseases, not all, but some. This whole thing of exempting the pharmaceutical companies if something goes wrong with it is totally crazy. Wait a minute, you got a free reign to do whatever you want and experiment on people, And to me, this whole thing with the mask, it doesn't restrict viruses through the mask at all. Only water droplets, but viruses pass right on through. Doesn't matter. And then you got all the, one classic that I witnessed on YouTube, it was freezing out. The guy went out and put a mask on. All the water vapors coming out and around him. Then they put 2 on. Then they put 3 on. Then they put N95 on. The only way you can prevent that is a total hazmat rebreather suit. That's the only way you can prevent breathing in viruses in the atmosphere and or exhaling them onto somebody else. It doesn't. Other than that suit, or in a lab suit where they're working on various things, viruses, bacteria, etc., it didn't work. So it was, to me, an experiment in how you could control the population. It was offensive to me. Very offensive. Now, public comment. Let's start over here on the left with Mr. Thompson, and then David, and then whoever else.
Phil Thompson, Coos Bay. I shared the constitutional part. We got a state constitution, we got a federal constitution. Now, I think the courts are the ones who decides, and attorneys that decide what's legal and what's not legal. I don't think this board has the right. You can make certain ordinances and stuff like that, but you cannot interpret the Constitution legally. You might think you can. I have to agree with John. There's a lot of things I don't like. But you have a choice to wear that mask. Nobody was going to put you in jail for it. You might be banned from meetings going in like that. Or a person that owns a store, they have a legal right to say anything. However they're going to do it, where it's no shirt, no shoes, no service. Same thing. They can say no mask, no service. So, but you guys, when I say you guys, I mean the board, that you do not have a right, what I heard you read, to do what you want to do. Now, I will tell you what constitutional right, I've had people told me, Mr. Rod, that they've asked me, why does the commissioner let Rod openly carry there? Well, by law, you have that right. It's already been interpreted. But then now you got some people that you can ask me, and I don't have the answer. Well, why don't they issue us these flak jackets are enclosed, the commissioners with solid glass, because I'm afraid to come in there with that man carrying a gun. So they've got, the other people's got rights as well as you. Now, right now, as far as I'm concerned, you're legally entitled to do that. But then what about those other people that says, I'm not coming to that commissioner meeting unless you've got something to prevent him from using that gun?
Here's
now,
what I say to them, Bill, is they are
Can you go in
welcome
the courthouse
to wear a
over
mask.
there with that weapon?
What?
Can you walk in the courthouse over with that weapon?
Oh, I can walk in.
Would they make you take your weapon off?
Unfortunately, the judge has the authority to do that. Inappropriately applied, in my opinion, but there it is. And what's your point?
Well, my point is that you can't, one thing doesn't fit it all. You got people that don't think you have that right, and then you got people that do. I think you have that right. I said that. But then when you're stepping on the other people's toes, they don't think you have that right. And even going in the Social Security office, I had to put my pocket knife in a thing before I could go in there. So you don't have absolutely rights on any of this stuff. And I think about it.
You ready, David? Then who's next? You're next, Ray.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is David Jennings. I live here in Coquille. Good morning, David. Good morning.
David.
Obviously, this is a resolution that people have strong feelings about. To begin with, I would like to say that if you want to take this up, I think it would be appropriate to have this be something that is on the regular agenda, and a copy of the resolution is available online and elsewhere, so that people knew that this was up, and they could come and make a good opinion about it. Except you and yourself and possibly a few other people, I certainly. This is a complicated subject, and I would take exception to a number of things that are said in the resolution, but I certainly don't have a hand in data to dispute that, except possibly on one thing, and that's simply to remind the board that, well, as Commissioner Sweet said, people can have opinions that something's unconstitutional, but other people may have a different opinion. I would just note that the emergency orders that were issued by the governor of Oregon were found to be constitutional by the Oregon Supreme Court. And even though the Supreme Court of the United States has made some modifications on some of the emergency acts that the federal government did, to the best of my knowledge, the Supreme Court never overturned this case of Dickinson versus the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that upheld the legality, at least in some circumstances, of the vaccine mandate. And certainly the health parts of it are interesting, but also controversial. So I would say that if the board is indeed interested in pursuing this, I think what you need to do is you need to put this on a regular agenda item and try to get some publicity that this is something you're considering, and give people a chance to get up there and talk after having had a chance to think about it, possibly use their search. Because again, there are conflicts over this issue, and I don't think it's fair to have this as a late agenda item that wasn't available for people to review or look at and think about before they adopted it. So if the board wants to take this up, I just recommend, I don't know when you're going to meet next meeting, a regular meeting in September, but I don't think there are probably going to be any emergency orders issued before then, or if you really think this is that pressing, I guess you could set the meeting sometime right after they would be considered. But I would urge you not to pass this without a minimum putting it on the agenda and giving people a chance to look at it. And then you can take a whole bunch of other testimony and then you can do what you think is best. That's my take.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Anybody there in yellow?
Susan Kirkendall from Coos Bay. Thank you for even attempting to do this. I'm going to give just a personal experience as far as the masking goes. My late husband was a heart transplant, more than one. And I can tell you that the surgeon who put that new heart in his body was well aware that those masks do not stop viruses. He thought it was silly that people didn't wear them because they don't stop the viruses. It makes you feel better if you sneeze, then maybe it'll stop the particulates. But those masks, even the most extreme of those, do not stop virus particles. My other observation is that what you were saying, if I understand it correctly, is that you're not telling other people that they can or should not or have no right to do what they want to do. If they want to mask up because they feel better, they can. If they want to take the shots that are being propagated on the newest information, they can. But what you are trying to say is that those who choose not to have that right in this county to make that choice and not be mandated to follow through with wearing a medical device, which is what those masks end up falling under, or taking a shot that we do not think is to our best advantage. So it's just a personal observation. Thank you for even attempting to do this. I stand in favor of what you would like to do.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, who's next? Yes, sir. James.
change that, if this is what basically I came for today. Look, we're in the most significant transformative chapter in our history. And the days of going along to get along need to be over. I've spent hundreds of hours on this subject, the mask thing, the vaccine, well, that's a misnomer, the bioweapon jab. And the whole operation, and it was an operation, is filled with lies from the very, very beginning to the very, very end, and everything in between. The masks, it says on the box that they do not stop the transmission of viruses. It's like, you know, the joke that we were saying last year is it's like putting a chain link fence in your yard to keep mosquitoes out. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I would applaud you for showing some courage and doing the right thing. And it is constitutional because the central postulate, the central tenet to our Constitution roots us in the divine individual and individual rights. And in keeping with that, if somebody feels that it gives them a warm and fuzzy feeling to have that toxic fibrous mask on their face, then that's what freedom's all about. Let them do it. But it's time to take a stand. And if you write a check in the name of freedom, the check can be covered. And if there are no peer-reviewed studies showing that the masks are effective. I looked for hours. There are tons of studies showing that the masks, peer-reviewed studies showing that the masks are ineffective. There are no peer-reviewed studies showing that these COVID jabs were effective. And it is going to turn out to be the biggest mass casualty event in our entire history. So we're in a very significant time. Show some courage and make sure you're on the right side of history, because this whole thing is going to shift. And make sure you're on the side of the people. Thank you.
Anybody else? Richard?
This is Richard Kaczynski once again. Since everyone is talking about the Constitution, they should read the preamble that explains why we're doing it. And one of the things it says is for the common good and common welfare. That's why it was written to begin with. Okay, there were a bunch of issues that were raised here. Vaccines have been effective for a couple hundred years, and they have wiped out any number, well, not completely, but basically wiped out any number of very deadly diseases over the last couple hundred years. And you can say anything you want about it, but it's real science, and the vaccines work. And they have worked here. Had we started, had it come up, had the vaccine been developed earlier, we would have saved hundreds of thousands of people in this country and around the world, and has saved people's life. And using the word tyranny to describe what was happening is really an overreach, okay? It's not tyranny. It's something that I think as the entity representing us all is a responsibility that we have, you know, to kind of watch out for one another. And freedom ends, you know, your freedom kind of is limited by walking around spewing COVID vaccine viruses out in the air when I'm walking in the grocery with you. So there's a limit to their freedom. I'm sorry I'm kind of rambling a little bit. I feel very strongly about some of these issues. In terms of the masks, yeah, they are maybe not as effective as we would like them to be. And I could walk around with my respirator and feel definitely more secure. But New Zealand pretty much controlled and wiped out COVID before there was a vaccine by having very strict mask and social distancing things in place. So there is a level of effectiveness that the masks do, represent. And, no one's telling you gotta wear a mask. I don't think that should be part of it. But just remember that, if you may not even know you're carrying the COVID virus and still be dropping it around, Safeway when I'm looking at a salad dressing. Okay, I don't want to go on too much, but I agree with the woman that spoke before me. We should have a more open discussion about this ordinance. So, before you guys make a decision about it. But there's a lot of bogus science out there, probably some on both sides. But I'm a believer in real science. I'm a believer in vaccines. That's why there isn't polio around everywhere. That's why measles are controlled. George Washington had his guys scratched with smallpox, because he understood the basic concept of vaccines. Anyway, I'm going to stop.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
But I
Richard.
think it is an important issue, and the new variants. There's a new, the viruses are evolving very quickly, a lot quicker than humans evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And the more people that are carrying them, the more chances there are of the virus, evolving. That one virus that doesn't get affected by the vaccine boom.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Gentleman in the front.
Tim Pierce, Van in Oregon. Thanks again for letting me talk here. I basically want to say one thing here. My rights do not end where other people's spheres begin. Constitution is individual rights, not group rights. Group rights is socialism. This is individual. If you want to wear a mask, fine. My brother and I were both trained by the military in this stuff. And we both laughed at it from the very beginning. If you want to stop the next COVID, jail the people that started the first one.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Okay, online.
I just got over COVID, so I think I'm pretty well adapted to what this disease does and doesn't do, because this second time that I have COVID, it only took me 4 or 5 days to get over it because I built up an immunity. And that's not something that's coming from me, that's what my doctor told me. The Constitution wasn't written for constitutional lawyers. The Constitution was written for the people to read and decide for themselves what they think is best for them. They're using their interpretation of the Constitution. And then we go through the court system to find out if those interpretations are right. The only way you can do that is for this board to pass this amendment and then allow it to work its way up the chain. See, everything starts at a local level. We've decided through our representatives, that's being the board, whether or not these mandates are constitutional or not constitutional. And you could put 10 constitutional lawyers, line them up in this room, and you get 10 different answers probably. So the best way to do this, to find out if we're on the right track, is pass this resolution. And let's see what the courts say. Let's see what the appeal court says. Let's see what the Supreme Court says. I think the only way we're going to find out is if we challenge them and challenge their ideas. And I want everyone to know, I'm not opposed to vaccine. I'm opposed to being forced to take a vaccine. I'm not opposed to people wearing masks. I'm opposed to people making me wear a mask. I'm not opposed to people locking down their business. I'm opposed to the government telling me I have to lock down mine. And that is the common good, is where we get to decide for ourselves what is best for us. That's the common good. So I highly recommend you pass this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, anybody else online? Very good. Everybody is, nobody else in the audience? Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One moment.
Oh,
I'd like to ask one thing. We provided some time ago for a late agenda item, the possibility of that. And I think David said it best. Things like this deserve a bigger discussion, not something that's come up at the last moment. The late agenda item was made available to the county commissioner as a tool to deal with things that had to be dealt with at a particular time in order to, like the contract being signed, if didn't approve it today, if the possibility of signing it was gone tomorrow because the other part of the contract had a deadline on when it would be signed. And that's why we put in the provision for a late agenda item. And I know I'm opening the door to a lot of people that will come here and take a lot of time, but I think that's the right thing to do, not to pass this or not pass it as a late agenda item. That's not what the late agenda items were providing.
however, the practice of late has not adhered to that. It has been anything that didn't make it to the late agenda, I got late, for whatever reasons, not only just, well, all kinds of different reasons. And so it seemed to be an automatic thing rather than, if I were to think about it, originally it was for absolute things, like you said, that it's morphed into anything that's come before the board in the last day or two that people want on the agenda. And that's through our own fault that we didn't restrict that and make them come to the next regular board meeting. So it is morphed into, by practice, that anything that comes before us, we've heard.
I disagree with that. We've abused it perhaps, but we haven't abused it when we have something that's important as a good discussion of this on the docket.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I'd just like to speak to that utilization of the late since I'm the one that did it, and I feel compelled to justify it. Understanding that the procedure, the late provision is in place for purposes along the lines of what Commissioner Sweet mentioned. It has come to my attention within the last few days that we have an emergent situation with the possibility of new restrictions and mandates rolling out before we have another commissioners meeting. And I deemed it insufficient time to try to work in a work session to deal with this singular issue. And it seemed like a more efficient use of the board's time to go ahead and get it pushed in under a late now, since I am very confident this reflects the will of the majority of the people in Coos County. And that's what I wanted to say.
Okay. Anything else by anybody? Yes, sir. Are you doing the citizen comment, or are you just commenting on it? Okay.
I'm Dave Kaufman. I live in Coos Bay. I am wearing the Salvation Army uniform representing them as a major, but I want to speak as a citizen. And there was one part of the resolution you just shared had to do with county resources. No county resource will be used, and I'm sorry, this is the first time I've heard it. So that reference right there, first off, I applaud that you're starting the communications on this. I think it's really important that I just Googled that really fast and I see there is some action moving quickly. It's coming, I didn't even know that until today. So that shared, I think it's important that communications start at this level and then people understand that this is really serious. I would just say, coming from the position where I'll talk about my employer now, to say that you wouldn't use any county resource, I think that would be not good business, because I'll share from a nonprofit perspective. The business of COVID helped a lot of nonprofit other ways. So the coffer, all boats rise when the tide comes in. We were able to utilize resources that came from COVID to do other things with. So I would just say maybe review that one section in regard to county resources. That's my only comment. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. Okay, thank you. Commissioner reports. Who wants to do that? I attended an ONC quarterly meeting. ONC is let me get closer to the mic here. ONC is the 18 Western Oregon counties who are involved with the ONC forest of 2+ million acres of federal government administrates, basically BLM. If you may or may not know, we won on the U.S. court our appeals. We have 2 appeals, the resource management plan and then the Siskiyou Cascade Monument case. It went to the D.C. Court of Appeals, where they overturned the lower federal court. Now we're considering going to the Supreme Court of the United States. We discussed that at our meeting last Thursday, Friday. Also met with Maya Crawford Peacock, who's the governor's chief person for statewide appointments. And I had a question for her. They said, since I'm on more than one, and you have to go, and if you don't know, you have to go through a online class and pass with a certain percentage in order to be on a statewide committee. New rules and regulations. But I asked her, if I'm on 3, why do I have to take the same class 3 times? Wasn't 1 enough if you pass? So she was going to look into that. Just seems a waste of time for 3 hours instead of 1 hour. Now, if you had a new one, maybe that might apply, but you would think that the whole same online class would apply to all of them. And I don't know if it's my other 2 commissioners, but the other 2 had any more calls. Apparently, in some areas, the mosquitoes have worsened, not gotten better.
I haven't gotten none of those calls.
Okay. I know at least 2 people, in fact, this morning, got a hold of me and said that their mosquito problem across the valley here has gotten worse. John?
I have not heard, other than from one of our employees, his wife,
Okay.
about mosquitoes.
And we're trying to get a handle on that. We have the county health department working on it and the water master working on it.
Would that be possibly a consequence of the natural cycle of what did happen a few weeks ago? Seems like we might not be outside that window where you would expect it to get a little worse before it gets better. But,
Well, the incubation period, I find out, is 8 to 10 days from larval. Well, not larval, but egg to larval to hatching out. So I don't know if it's in a cycle, more water.
Well, I don't know what the life expectancy is once they're hatched,
Yeah.
but it's not terribly long. They're not known for their longevity.
30 days or something.
If that.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I I don't know the windows closed.
I'm kind of at a loss as to what to do before getting rid of them.
I think time.
Maybe, I was thinking about maybe calling Klamath County or Lakeview County or some of those and see if they have a vector control, how that works. Is that a voted in subset of the county? How does that work to get rid of these things? Because it's apparently quite annoying in the hundreds of thousands of mosquitoes around people's houses. I've gotten pictures of a mosquito trap and from a person I know that was here at our meeting. Holy mackerel, it was black. It wasn't just a few mosquitoes, it was just saturated. That must be miserable living there. I know my wife was out in the backyard gardening, and we've never had mosquitoes up here in Coquille. I had to put up one of those electric bug traps because she was getting bit up in the backyard. Okay, that's it for me. Who wants to go next?
Well, let's see. I, in the last couple of weeks, had a meeting with the local manager of the Bureau of Land Management, trying to find inventive ways to replace the timber revenue or restore the timber revenue that we've been missing. Let's see, various workshops. Let's see, this was the, oh yeah, that's right. On Thursday the 17th, we had, actually, I wasn't involved in it, but Matt Wilbanks organized a homelessness workshop at the Egyptian Theater. It was reasonably well attended, not as well maybe as we would have hoped, but not bad, and tremendous amount of constructive input. It was really very positive, very cognizant of what the needs are among these people that we're trying to figure out how to help and deal with. And I want to go to a brief aside on this too, related to the homelessness issue. One of the ideas that we've discussed here at the board is the idea of the road host program, and I'm continuing to work in the background on that. Andrew Brainerd is here. He's our homelessness lead, and he's working on some questions there. But the other day, the idea in a nutshell is to find people who are restricted to living in their RVs, and they're looking around for places to park their RVs. Typically, they're not newer and not in great condition, so they might be restricted from certain parks or areas, and so it becomes a very difficult problem for some of these people who are living this way. I encountered one of these people. I encountered a woman just the other day in Coos Bay. My wife and I saw her, and it looked like she was living in her RV. So I went over and chatted with her. And in just a couple of minutes talking with her, I could tell that she was very much the type of person that we would want to recruit for this road host program, to let a homeless RV dweller live at the apron of a county road that we've had to gate for safety reasons for the forest, and let them afford access to people who are coming in. They have a key, they have a camera, they take a picture of the driver's license, that person can go in. And this individual that I met seemed just like the right kind of person. And I briefly explained to her what the concept was, and she looked at me and she said, "That would change my life." And it gave me chills. It gave me chills just now again to know that as a county, we could potentially improve and enhance the access of our tax-paying citizens to our county forest lands through responsible use of those roads, and we could enhance the position of somebody like this lady who I met, whose name I can't share because I didn't get permission, but it was very impactful, and I think this is a program with great promise. Even if it only works to get a couple of roads open to begin with, let's do everything we can. So very excited about that. Let's see. We had, gosh, there was something else. Oh, I know what else. Last week, had the great opportunity to go to a mock trial. And we have a jail death case that's pending. And so the legal team established this mock trial to have 2 separate mock juries present some questions to those juries and gauge their responses in order to help formulate what the possible outcome of a lawsuit or of a court case might be, a trial might be, and also to gauge the efficacy of certain arguments. So it's fascinating to sit through that with the sheriff was there and the jail commander was there to see how this would work and what the outcome might be. In this particular case, I'm not sure the outcome is going to be favorable to the county, but that's yet to be determined. Fascinating opportunity and very important. So I think that's all I have.
I had a question about that. So hypothetically thinking, officer arrests somebody who is on some kind of illegal drug. They come to the jail. Let's say jail medical looks at them and says, go to the hospital. Hospital looks at them, sends them back. They are found deceased in their jail cell a couple hours later. Now, why is the fault of the county for somebody taking illegal drugs and doing some kind of illegal act and getting caught? Why is it the responsibility of the county that their death was on the county? I just don't see how that works. I'm going, huh? How did any reasonable person find that? Just makes no sense to me. If they hadn't been brought to the jail, or the jail said, no, we're refusing them because they're on some kind of whatever, and they're let back on the street and they died on the street, would that still be our responsibility? I don't know, but they're going, this makes no sense to me. When you're doing it to yourself, voluntarily. It just boggles my mind. And it's, like I said here a while back, it's open season on the counties and the state, because if it goes to a jury trial or a judge, and the judge or the jury find $1 for the plaintiff or more, the attorneys get all of their costs paid for. Therefore, the insurance companies for the jail medical and the county want to settle out of court because it might be so much more. The whole system seems crazy, whereas they should share in the dollar, not get all their $1,000 an hour times 5 attorneys cost for how many thousands of hours.
So you posed a question.
Yeah.
And I'd like to respond to it. My take, observing the comments from the mock jurors, was that we've come to a place where, as a society, there's a broad-based assumption that number one, government has unlimited resources. In fact, one of the jurors said, "Well, it's not like suing a person." Well, no, it's like suing all of us.
Yeah.
The second, that there is no accountability for behaviors like taking illegal drugs. And this is something that I think is exemplified through the passage of Measure 110 and a number of other metrics that would indicate that. And so that's what I think. Oh, and lawyer class, I call them the ambulance chasing ankle biters who profit off of this kind of misfortune at the expense of all of us. You know, there wasn't anything that the county did in this case, in my estimation, that the jail did to cause this death. But the jurors are what decide that. And unfortunately, we have a legal system now that has become much more directed by that I don't know, progressed psyche that I mentioned. Yeah, I think we got a serious problem.
Yeah, the law needs to be examined because the whole deal is settle out of court and get paid. Okay, you finished? Okay, John?
Okay, I'll wrap up quickly. Thank you all who have been here and all who have endured this. You know, we tend to deal with our problems. And sometimes we don't agree, sometimes we do agree. Today, we often didn't agree across the board. But you know, it will go on because we're what we are and that's the way the system works. So don't be dismayed about a little disagreement here. Although I can't understand what the heck they were thinking, but nonetheless, this will go on. But back to we're here by and large to deal with problems. And sometimes it seems overwhelming. We don't often enough take time to count our blessings. And my daughter and my grandkids were here for an entire week from a lovely place in California. We didn't do anything special. We went up the river, we went swimming, we went up to Hall Lake, we went swimming, we went fishing at the Sixes River, we did mountain bike riding. Even I did weekend.
Oh no!
At the mountain bike trails, and they're very fortunate. They have good resources and they do a lot of things. This was the best thing they did all summer long. Was come to Coos County. So once in a while, we take it for granted. We shouldn't. It's a wonderful place we live here. Do have a question for you that. To provide input, we have one park that is pretty much just what do you call it? I'm thinking one.
Wayside?
A wayside. It's between here and Roseburg. There's nothing to write home about. It has one vault toilet in it. It used to be a spot that veterans on their way from here to the Veterans Hospital in remote. It used to be a spot that veterans who went from here to the Veterans Hospital in Roseburg and back would use. Because of the cost of the county, a couple of times we suggested maybe it's not important enough to keep. The veterans always changed their mind. We asked the same question of the veterans here just recently. They said, no, now we go to Eugene, so we don't go there very often. So any input any of you have, I would greatly appreciate it because we're always looking for ways to save money. But at the same time, we have an obligation to continue providing needed services, a reasonable level of needed services to our citizens. So if you have any thoughts on closing or not closing the convenience station at Remote, again, it's a bumpy parking lot and essentially a glorified outhouse. They call it a vault toilet. So, pardon me? Yeah. And the covered bridge is there too as well.
Mm-hmm.
That would stay. So I talked about positive as people coming here as a positive. the pleasure we should have out of living here. On an economic note, Roseburg Forest Products is making, as we've talked about before, a $50 million investment in their plywood plant here in Coquille. That speaks highly of the value of that plant, speaks highly of the work ethic of the people that live here and work there. They've started that $50 million project. So that's not the only investment we have going on in the county, but it's a big one. It's in wood products, which has kind of always been our lifeblood. I thought it was worthwhile talking about. I think it's noteworthy to mention that each year, every other year, we choose whether we want to take from the Oregon and California Railroad lands or the BLM lands that are in our county, whether we want to take a share of the receipts, the harvest receipts, or there's a backup program to that called Secure Rural Schools. And the information we get on which we can choose between those two. The information we get is not always real good, but it was enough in favor of the harvest revenue option that we took that this year. And that's the first time in a long time that we've chosen to take that. Now, but make sure that our decision is a good one. We won't know that until we get a comparison. But I thought that was noteworthy, that there is a little bit of harvest going on in those lands. And with that, I think it's time.
Nope, not yet. Citizen comments. Major David Kaufman from the Salvation Army first.
Yeah, and Andrew, do you want to join him on that, or did you guys come tandem to do that, or
We wrote together.
separate comments?
Yeah.
Come on up, David.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's so nice to formally meet you. Major David Kaufman of the Salvation Army. May I approach?
Sure.
Our community center has been serving this area since 1898.
Thank you, sir.
The Salvation Army has been in this area. We do several things that are important to this community. Primarily among them are social services. We served last month nearly 400 families with food. We help people, it's a community effort, but we help people with firewood and things that they need. We also do some big things in after-school programs, primarily in Coos Bay and North Bend. We are also helping through our thrift stores. We're doing clothing vouchers, furniture vouchers. We're doing a lot of things in the community. I wanted to provide you with a brief snapshot. Now, this changes fairly regularly. You'll notice we're doing like VBS and things like that, so we'll update this after these are completed. I want to also let you know that we're in hopes of expanding services at the Salvation Army down on our Flanagan Avenue property. We're exploring options of putting in housing, transitional housing for those who are experiencing homelessness. We're also exploring working with the Coos Curry County North Bend Housing Authority we have 2 extra acres in the back that have never been touched. It's forested and it's untouched. We're looking at putting up to 60 units of multifamily housing there as well. I wanted to introduce myself and let you know that things are going to be coming possibly down the pipeline, and we could maybe use your help in, I don't know yet. There's some things that I just haven't uncovered. This is exploratory. I'm just starting the conversations. My leadership was down for Portland yesterday, and we spent the better part of the day looking at how this will fit into the footprint of the Salvation Army in this area. In particular, operational funding. So that's going to be coming up. That's going to be a major concern for leadership from Portland that shared, you're doing a lot already. How are you going to afford it? And that's where I'm putting it before everyone I can talk to say, help us out. If nothing else, pray for us. I leave you with that thought, and I appreciate very much all the work you're doing on behalf of all the people we serve in Coos Bay and North Bend. And it's so nice to meet you formally, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Well, I'm here. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate your work. And by the way, there's a great piece of property that Johnny may have for sale here very soon.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know the Bologna Ranch.
I heard about that.
Yeah. We'll chat. I'll give you a call.
Thank you.
My cell phone's on there.
Thank
My
you.
Contact information.
Thank you, Dave.
Alrighty, anybody didn't sign up for public comment? Yes, come on up.
About the other hand.
Yeah, let's give Andrew.
Oh, well, Andrew can come afterwards.
Oh,
Go
just-
ahead.
You know, you had a lot of talk today about commerce and revenue. I'll just remind you that in this last COVID operation, and it was an operation, it put out 1/3 of our small businesses in our country. And they're just getting their legs underneath them now. And just think about what another one of these tyrannical lockdowns and everything. And you know, when you get backlash, if you're doing the right thing in this regard, you have a retort. You can come up with the goods. You can come up, if called to task, you can come up with the scientific proof that it was all unfounded. And the proponents to reinstill the lockdowns and the jabs and the masks simply can't. I don't even mean a bought and paid for study. They can't come up with the goods. And if you do the right thing, you will be able to. So it's time, like we were saying during Rod's campaign, that, you know, if you look back, all the problems that Coos County and most all rural places that are under attack in our country, all the problems come from the outside. So it's time to for us to regain our sovereignty as individuals. It's time to regain our sovereignty as communities, and that is what the Constitution, the original framework, provides for us: local control and individual liberty. So it's time to get back to that. That's where we're going.
Andrew?
How much time may I have this afternoon, commissioners? For 1 to 5 minutes each. Can you do it in 5 minutes? I can do my best I can, and then maybe by our next county commissioner meeting, if I'm available to have more time as well.
Yeah, or get on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Put you on the agenda. May I put some bench?
Sure.
Awesome. This is a project that I had talked with Commissioner Taylor about, and so I did some research and work on it. So, thank you. First off, before I start, my name is Andrew Brandon. I'm the Director of First Homeless Response. I represent Coos County and also especially the city of Coos Bay and North Bend. Before I start, I would also like to share with what Lee Hoffman had talked about. This Friday, between 5:30 and 7:30 at the Salvation Army residence, there's going to be a barbecue and informational meeting, town hall with the neighborhoods down there. They had sent out letters to both city, Coos Bay, North Bend, and I believe they made outreach to Coos County. But I just wanted to welcome anybody that would like to attend. I'm also going to talk probably there for about 15 minutes about the houselessness that's going on with the speech as well. So I just want to say that's happening this Friday. We're continuing to work on the strategic plan, but one of the things I want to talk about, since I only have about 5 minutes, is what I have proposed to you right there. Talking with Commissioner Taylor, his wife as well, a couple weeks ago, and he had mentioned today is possibly finding a road host program. And so I did some research on that. And if you look at your packet there, I talked to Nicole Rutherford, new city manager of Coos Bay, and there's actual ordinance on regulations in section 7 that starts on page 4 about what they actually do enforce Coos Bay. And it can be a similar project that Coos County will get as well. I'd be very interested in more of your time to talk more about that, or if you have any direction that you would like me to pursue in that as well, that could be something that's coming up. Also, in the strategic plan, I want to talk about is one of the questions is how can we help out our law enforcement and people that are on the front line that are working with or homeless that are currently outside right now. As we can see, we are very limited to officers and people with emergencies, and that happens right now. And I've seen it at Coos Bay North Bend because I did a ride along recently with North Bend. We had a community resource meeting, and we discussed some ideas that come from the strategic plan of how can we help our law enforcement. And one of the ideas that we are starting to talk about now is having a volunteer program that's at no cost to have a peer support specialist program that can assist with our officers by contacting them to do a smooth handoff of helping out with resources at that time. It's kind of in the works. We're kind of communicating about it, but it would be a free volunteer program. Down the road, you might have to have qualified peer support specialists with funding to actually have them do the training, but it'd be a volunteer program that can help out our officers. And I'm kind of excited about it. I think it would actually do very well. And I'm working right now with Kyle Brown from Operation Legal Help on this matter, and I'm looking forward to the future. One other thing, go ahead,
Is
Bob.
that different than the MRT team that county health has?
Yes, this would just be another asset for our officers to use that we can help provide information so our officers don't have to spend so much time with the crisis that we're going on and find other emergency matters. They would be on the same team and then possibly look at maybe training with Coos County and the city of Coos Bay and North Bend with this program. And like I said, it would be completely volunteer. The only funding that we may have to look at is to get somebody trained to be a peer support specialist. So, one other thing I want to mention before I go is another thing that's on the short-term plan on the plan that the county and those cities voted on with the strategic plan that got adopted on April 18th is as we see homelessness with the crisis that we're going on right now is with mainly a lot of homeless people have animals, and for them to actually get services, a lot of the agencies don't allow animals to be with them during that time. There's actual program through Morgan Veterinarians, that place right now that actually holds the animals at a certain time, which is funded by a program that's in Nevada, and it actually takes care of the animals while they're getting help. And so I can talk more about that later. I know I only got under 5 minutes, but if it's okay and if it's available, I'd love to speak at the next commissioners meeting with a little bit more time.
I'll make a note to add you to the agenda.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for what you're doing.
Anybody else want to come up for citizen comments? Seeing none, thank you all. We are adjourned.